Welcome to the Chronicles of Cigarnia, where we review two of the most divine things in the world, cigars and books, which puts us square in the happy spot for about 2 people. So yeah, if you're out there, hi. Today we're going to compare Stephen King's novel about a murderous, possibly demonic car called Christine, and the Surrogates cigar called the Bone Crusher. Now, I assume you know why I have paired both of these, even if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, which I have not seen, by the way, because I am way too scared. So if you're here for either the book or the cigar and not both, I don't want to torture you. So when you see the cover of the book go up on the screen, that means I'm talking about the book. And if that's gone and I just have the cigar in my hand, that means I'm talking about the cigar. So technically, you could scroll through to get the information you want. However, I encourage you to stick around because you never know what interesting tidbits you'll pick up that might come in useful during, I don't know, something like that barbecue that's going on in the neighborhood this weekend that your spouse is forcing you to attend. I'm sorry. So let's get started. I have here the Surrogate Bone Crusher, and the first thing I notice when I look at it is the ring gauge. Actually, it's a 55, and the name does make me feel like I got a woman up for this one, right? So whatever, bring on the ring gauge. It's got a nice dark wrapper that's a bit matte. There it is, if you can see that. It's about 5 and a smidge, I would say. It is all Nicaraguan with a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper. There is something interesting in how these cigars feel, and it's not just this one, but all of the cigars in our tasting panel, tested with the tasting panel. But all of the cigars in our tasting panel felt like it was packed with leaf, and yet it's not hard necessarily. It is still a little bit spongy, which seems like a contradiction, I know, but all you need to do is poke me where my abs should be and you could totally understand what I'm talking about. Whoa. Super intense earth that maybe got mixed with some chemicals in a chemical spill. That doesn't sound very flattering. A little intimidating since I am not the most hardy of smokers, but like I said, I've been warned, right? And yeah. So the banding on this is pretty interesting. Just black and white. You can see the Surrogate's name on there in that nice Gothic script. The upper band with the Bone Crusher, though, it's a little bit cartoonish, and it's kind of cute, actually, but I don't necessarily know if they were going for cute because the name doesn't say cute. I think what I'm trying to say is I'm a little bit confused as to what the message is this band is sending and who the demographic is they're trying to reach with this. I'll tell you who they probably didn't think about marketing to was book nerd, opera-loving, fragrance hound, rugby and soccer crazed, tea snob woman who spends hot afternoons in her garage reviewing cigars. But, you know what this reminds me of is one of the TV greasers from a long time ago. And I mean the greasers that are kind of like teddy bears, more like Lenny and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley, if anyone is old enough to remember that. Instead of the actual greasers that were around in the 50s, who would probably kick your butt if they found you in a back alley in the dark. And now the moment of truth, where I try to cut the cigar gracefully with people watching me. Even though technically right now there is nobody in this room, I still feel pressure. Let me grab my cutter. All right, let's see if I can do this. Let's go for a nice spot here. Mm-hmm. What do you know? First try. Okay, let's do this pre-light draw. Do you remember that moment in your childhood where you took an amazing header into the dirt on the playground? The moment before the blood from the tooth you just lost starts to seep in with the dirt? But fortunately, the tasting panel disagreed and they said that they got single malt scotch. Oh yeah! All right, I see what they're getting at. But this brings up the point that all of this, the palate, the opinions, it's all subjective. So if you get single malt scotch, you're lucky. If you get a mouthful of dirt, so be it. So I just had a moment of existential crisis trying to figure out what good reviews are if everything is subjective. And I think what helps with that kind of thing is to light up a cigar. So let's do this. Once again, I think exciting music might be helpful. While I'm doing this, I might as well give you a little bit of background. The maker of this, Pete Johnson, I believe his name is the same gentleman who does Tatuajecigars. It's a collaboration with him and another guy named Dan Welsh. Interesting, it seems that when Pete Johnson was starting up, he was the only guy who had tattoos in the cigar world, and now it's kind of unusual to find anybody under 40 who does not have tattoos. Times change, I guess. Pyrotechnics. Always fun. It's that nice bullseye there. Yay. Okay. So this draws really nicely. Actually, for how packed it feels, it's quite a nice, easy draw. Whoa. Flavors. A lot of spiciness on this, on my lips, and maybe a bit of earth, but whoa, hold on. Well, I think I'm gonna smoke a little bit more of this and try to sort out exactly what's going on, but this gives us a good opportunity to start talking about our book. So it's hard not to know Stephen King in America, even if you don't read, because he is such the master of American horror. Here he is, and it's kind of a nice picture of him. There are some wonderfully creepy pictures of him out there on the web. Horror. The book we're talking about today, Christine, came out in 1983. It was his 13th book, and a lot of his big hits have already come out. Salem's Lot, Cujo, Carrie, The Stand. None of which, by the way, I have read, because once again, I am too scared. Christine is about a nerdy teenager named Arnold Cunningham. Yes, there is a reference to Happy Days in there. He sees a destroyed 1958 red Plymouth Fury by the side of the road, and he just totally falls obsessively in love with it. It has a for sale sign on it. He buys it from this awful, disgusting, horrible old man who we find out more about later. And he tries to fix this up, even though he knows nothing about cars. And weird things start to happen. The car appears to be fixing itself. The odometer starts to go backward, like the car is getting younger. It only plays 1950s music, and that's just the beginning. The stuff that happens starts to get even more and more disturbing. It is narrated not by Arnie, but Dennis, who is Arnie's best friend, and in a way his polar opposite, where Arnie is a nerd who is picked on and really badly bullied. Dennis is handsome, popular, the football player, and he has spent almost all of his life looking after Arnie and caring about him. So in a way, he's the perfect narrator for this, because he watches what's going on and he sees all of the stuff happening, and he continually tries to get Arnie out of what appears to be this horrible situation. Eventually, Christine is fully restored, and then the truly horrible things start to happen. She is alive, it seems, or possessed. We're not quite sure what. And she starts to avenge Arnie. Anyone who does him wrong gets punished in a way that you can only imagine a 58 Fury would do. It's a lot of bone crushing. Okay, so I think it's a good time to go back to the cigar. I'm just getting through the first third, and to be honest, I didn't really know what to make of the first third. It was a flavor bomb, to be sure, though not one I particularly enjoyed. I was wading through the different flavors, trying to figure out what was happening. But now that I'm into the second, there is a distinct nuttiness that was the first flavor to sink through. And it is more of a rich nuttiness. I would say more like a cashew, if you know what I mean by that. And it is getting sweeter, which is nice. There is some bittersweet chocolate or some cocoa powder along with that nuttiness. The pepper that I mentioned at the beginning has totally gone away, and it is smoothing out quite nicely, which makes me happy. Yeah, I'm actually enjoying the second third quite a bit more than I enjoyed the first. And it's continued to be a smooth, cool smoke, which I appreciate. And I'm kind of sad that my ash fell off because you can see it a little bit here actually. It's this lovely white color that contrasts quite nicely with the wrapper. Okay, let's put that book back up. Did I mention that the car is named Christine? So when this book came out, it was universally panned, not just by the critics, but also by horror fans and King's own fans. And King himself said that he wasn't very happy with this book. A lot of the complaints had to do with things like King was using horror tropes, but not fulfilling them or not using them in the correct way. People didn't enjoy the characters. There are a lot of plot holes that go on. Many different complaints about this book. There is one big thing, though, that did get to me because I found it to be a little bit distracting, and that was the problems with the narrator. Dennis is a delightful narrator, but he gets injured at the end of the first third of the book, and a random third person takes over, and that feels really weird. And then thankfully, Dennis comes back at the last third of the book, so that is nice. But it is a weird, jarring thing. One other thing you should know, this book is truly enormous. It comes in at, my e-reader said 536 pages. So it is a honker. If you are stuck in an airport, this is definitely a good one because it does keep you engaged. So overall, well, this book was panned, like I said, by critics and fans and King alike. But you know what? I really enjoyed it. I was touched by the characters. I was fully engaged the whole 500 and whatever pages, despite the weird narrative shift. I was very grossed out at some points. I was totally full of suspense. When you see those two headlights appear in the rearview mirror of the most awful evil bully, you know what's coming. And it's awesome, and I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. So yeah, I would say definitely, if you need a good read that also doubles as a doorstop because it's so big, this is the book for you. So I've made it to the third of the cigar, and it has only improved since the last time we were talking about it. That nuttiness is still very much in the foreground. The sweetness is increasing. Someone on my tasting panel actually described the earthiness that's also in this as that sweet earthiness that you get when you open a new bag of potting soil. And I agree with that. It's how it should taste in a perfect world. Though in reality, I have to say that potting soil does not taste good. There is also a hint of cocoa powder that is running through this cigar. And anyone who knows me longer than 5 seconds knows that I am always hungry. So that led me to grab some cocoa powder dipped almonds during the break. And oh my gosh, it was delicious. It made the sweetness of that cocoa powder really explode, and it was like a flavor party. So if you have anything around that has cocoa powder or some bittersweet chocolate involved, I would highly recommend that with a cigar. In fact, I have a few here that I think I should eat right now. Mmm. 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 Delicious. Before we get to the end of the cigar, I did want to talk a little bit about the room notes. It's the total opposite of the last cigar I reviewed, which had some very sweet, fruity, scented smoke. This, on the other hand, smells like smoke. I could describe it kind of like that smell of a barbecue before you throw meat on it. Some people actually really like this fragrance and spend a lot of time trying to infuse their meat with it. So depending on who you are, this could be a plus. So talking about the fourth third, which means how the cigar stays with you after you're done smoking, because it does. After I tried the cigar for the tasting panel, I was pretty sure that because of the intense aroma of the cigar, the name, the room notes, that I was gonna be like, whew. But you know what? I was really pleasantly surprised. Despite all of the strength that this cigar presents, it's really not that strong. An hour afterward, my hair didn't smell like anything but my hair, and it really didn't seep into my clothes the way I really thought it was going to. That also brings me to the fact that, despite its name, the Bone Crusher, it wasn't as intense as I was anticipating. I'm hardly affected by this at all. I would characterize it as medium. So, in a way, this cigar is very like those TV greasers that present as big tough guys, but they're really just teddy bears inside. The last thing I want to point out about this is you have an hour and a half of pretty good smoking. If you can get through the first third, then it is very enjoyable. So before we get into what is going to happen for the next review, I want to take this time to say thank you again to the tasting panel. I want to say thank you to you for watching. Please like it if you did. Please subscribe. Please pass me on to anyone who you think would be interested. I also want to give a special shout out to Transforminator 2020, who was my first subscriber. You beat my husband to be my first subscriber, so thank you very much for giving me something to hold over his head for the rest of our married lives. So we're getting pretty close to the 4th of July here in America. So for next time, I'm going to be smoking a cigar that is called the American Classic, I believe, or something very similar to that. And I'm going to read a lesser read piece by the wittiest American cigar smoker that we have so far, Mr. Mark Twain. So please come back to see that review. In the meantime, I hope you're smoking some really good cigars and reading some really good books, and ideally, doing it at the same time. Thank you so much again for watching, and please come back for the next one. Maybe I'm getting better? Oh.